Hello everyone and welcome to episode 12 of The Power of Books. My name is Timo Jübner, I'm the founder of Timo's Notes, and every week I interview popular non-fiction authors about their best-selling books. The goal of the show is to introduce you to new books and to provide you with helpful advice and practical tools. My guest today is Chris Smith. Chris is the co-founder of Curaytor, an Inc. 500 fastest growing business, and he's one of the 4 best marketers under 40, according to the American Marketing Association. His book, The Conversion Code, is taught at colleges like Johns Hopkins University, and he has been a guest lecturer at NYU. In The Conversion Code, Chris covers generating leads through good marketing, following up with the highest quality leads, and lastly, making the sale with his detailed sales script. From our conversation today, you can expect to learn about Chris' early beginnings in sales, his go-to lead generation channels, how Web3, NFTs, and the Metaverse will change the game, and a lot more. So now let's get right into our conversation. Enjoy the show. Chris Smith, welcome to The Power of Books. I'm happy to have you on today and talk about your book, The Conversion Code.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So I really enjoyed your book, and it's all about generating leads and converting them into active customers. And I'm curious because you share a little bit about your backstory, and I want you to share some of that with the listeners today. So how did you get into sales, first of all?
Sure. Well, I got into sales the way a lot of people do. I kind of had no other options, and I was broke and had to, live on my parents' couch at an age that was embarrassing to be doing so. And so a lot of sales companies, they'll hire anyone because it's so rare somebody's really good, and they're kind of willing to wade through some of the bad people to find the next superstar in sales. So I got a job in the boiler room, basically selling vacations, but it was a unique type of vacation where you would be coming to Orlando, which is where I live, and you would be auditioning to become famous. So you would sing, rap, walk the runway, excuse me, maybe tell a joke, right? So you would, and there was a boy band mogul that would put this event on. He discovered NSYNC and Britney and Backstreet. So, because he was so prominent, people from all over the country wanted to come get a chance to sing for him. So I was the guy doing the calls, trying to convince the people to come down to Orlando, 3 days, 2 nights, $1,200, 6 payments of $200, first payment to secure it. You can't come until the event's paid off. So I learned all these like boiler room, Wolf of Wall Street type stuff. The stuff you see in the movies is real. At least it was when I was doing this job. And as far as my background when it comes to the boiler room and sales, by learning that first, because I went on to do marketing, and I have a marketing company and social media, and I built a big following, and I sell books and, have a lot of fans and stuff now. But I started in that cubicle with a phone and a screen and dial. And it's tough. It's a difficult career. And even if it pays good, it's still hard. So that rejection and just the sort of overall perception of the profession is not pristine. And so because I started there, when I went to do Facebook and YouTube and Google, and when I started using technology and doing marketing to build my brand and to generate leads, I never wanted to have to like chase leads. It's almost like, do you see how I'd be going backwards if I had to do the boiler room again? Like I got out of there, and I don't think that the best path is to get out of there and then just put somebody in the same seat you were in and have them call all the people you don't want to call. What I wanted to do was like get out of there for real. I wanted to figure out, how can I get people to chase me? How can I get people calling me? How can I get people wanting to work with me instead of me having to call them and bug them? How could I get people knocking on my door, if you will? So that's kind of when I teach marketing, which is what I do for half my time marketing, half my time sales. I just think the difference between me and a lot of marketing people is that I actually am a salesperson disguised as a marketing person. And it's hard to be really good at both. It's hard to kind of understand all the nuances of both. And so that's kind of the need for a book, because the sort of A through Z of getting marketing, technology, and sales right, it's scrambled up. It's complex across the board and within each category, right? So I felt, and I was right, but I just felt that like somebody should write more of a textbook about marketing and sales versus, I'm guessing, Timo, that you have a lot of books that you love. Like what is a marketing book that you love? Does anything come to mind right away?
So I haven't read many really marketing specific books, but related, something like Start With Why is also kind of marketing related. So that's one that I enjoyed.
Start With Why. Start With Why is a great example. Start With Why is a beautiful book. But what is the takeaway? Like if you were to tell someone that had never read it what they'd learn by reading it, what would you say about Start With Why?
It's basically just the one thing, that they should communicate as a brand or as a business. They should make people realize why they need a certain product or what's important, like the underlying, not selling with features or marketing with features, but with the actual feeling, and like it could be a sense of community or something else, just the underlying reason of buying something. And that's essentially the title says most of it.
Yeah. Right. And I love that book. And actually the golden circle from that book, which is, the why is the middle, and most people focus on the what and the how. And Simon Sinek's a genius. He's brilliant. He's way smarter than me. And so, but when you do actually extract the book and say, what'd you learn? You're right. It's actually important that you can get it all the way down to the core premise. I'll ask you a different question. You read my book, you're reading my book, right?
Yeah.
What did you learn?
Well, no, that's a good comparison, because I couldn't pinpoint like the thing I learned from your book, because I wanted to bring that up anyway. Like it's so broad. Even just when you talk about generating leads, you talk about all these different channels that you can generate leads through, that it's very hard to put it down in one message. I think one of the best things that I learned from the book is that you don't want to chase cold leads. Instead, you want to make them chase you. I think that's one of the most general principles that I learned.
Beautiful. And what's so funny is, just like you said with Simon, it's kind of the title says it all. The subtitle says it all. Stop chasing leads, start attracting clients. So it still has that sort of premise that kind of goes throughout the book, but the path to get there is very different than just one simple circle to understand the whole conversion code. But I'm glad that that's what you said, because it is more of a foundational decision to do digital marketing and inside sales as good or better than anybody you compete with, because and all the data backs this up, but when you get it right, the upside is tremendous. The amount of revenue and profit and the employee promoter score of the people that work for you, when you have that marketing and sales lead to revenue process perfected, and that's quote unquote, there's no perfect, but when you have it dialed in, it is tremendously beneficial. The companies that have it dialed in, at least in my space and some of the people that I work with, they actually quadruple or quintuple their business because of the internet, because of social media, because of digital marketing, because of online advertising. They freaking blow up. On the other side, there's people that are questioning the validity. How can those things both be true? How can it be true that you can quadruple your income in a 24-month period because you start doing videos and content and social media and your brand blows up? How can that be true? And then it also be true that it doesn't work. They can't both be true. It's just that when we think about the way we did things in the past, and even when you think about sales, you think about marketing and content today, it has done a 180 as far as the skill set, the consumer expectation, the ability for, the kind of Zillowification of the internet, where people can find their own information. They spend 30 minutes on Zillow and now they're a genius. They do a couple Google searches and now they know more about lead conversion than me. Even though I spent my whole life studying it, they watched a webinar. And so all of a sudden they know everything about lead conversion. And so that's that sort of WebMD syndrome that we all think we're smarter than the doctor. When you're in sales and marketing, you have to really factor that in, because people are smarter than ever. They have more access to information than ever. But you know what? When they're ready to buy something, guess what they want? They want to talk to a person. They want a person to listen. They want a person to understand their needs and goals. And they want a person to walk them through the process, not yank them over the finish line. And that sort of ability for that to happen, and then for people to tell their friends about it at scale too, because that's another part of social media, is that every client you have is now a marketer for you. There's a great quote: your best salespeople don't work for you, right? So you get the digital marketing dialed in, you get the inside sales dialed in. A lot of the people I work with, they already have the kind of customer service and like the actual process of working together dialed in. And then you get what I guess you would basically call kind of the, forget the term for it, but where you're trying to turn every client into 1.2, 1.4, 1.6 clients. And that's also easier than ever if you empower your happy customers to help you find more, right? And half of empowering them is just earning it. So that sort of quadruple your business is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but the rainbow is so long, and somebody asked me yesterday, if I just read the book, aren't I skipping all the work that you put in? Like, am I able to just kind of catch up? You put a decade in. I'm like, of course not. You can't catch up overnight, but you can know what you need to work on, and you can focus on one thing at a time, and you can start doing that the right way versus sort of spraying and praying or hoping or crossing your fingers that the stuff you're doing is working. And you build, right? And you build, and then it's like all of a sudden, okay, now our website looks great. Okay, we actually are blogging every week. Hey, our email newsletter is really popular. Hey, we started doing TikTok. It's actually already outgrown our Instagram. Hey, our YouTube channel just hit 1,000 subscribers. Hey, and then here's where it gets really fun. You're at the coffee shop and someone taps you on the shoulder because they know who you are. You go to an appointment to make a sale and they're already sold because they already know who you are. They already actually are like, not that this is happening a lot, but it's almost like they want your autograph when they meet you, you know? And so that is what I talk about, attracting clients versus chasing leads.
Yeah, you went really deep, and you already jumped ahead of so much that I wanted to ask you anyway. No, but that's awesome. I love it. I love that you just covered so much already and gave so much value. Where should I pick up? Well, one thing that I wanted to ask you, because when you said that you started, and I'm kind of going back a little, when you said you started in the boiler room, basically cold calling people, and you said it's hard, and I can imagine, and you see a lot of successful people, quote unquote successful people, start somewhere in a similar spot, and they all credit like that experience to their success to that experience. Would you say that, still today people should put themselves in a situation like that for a few months or so to just learn to talk to people, call them, get uncomfortable, or what's your take on that? Would you recommend it?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked that, because my son right now, he's at that age where he can start to work and he's thinking about looking for jobs, and the skill sets that have sort of shined in the past in many ways can be unnecessary today. He could do a drop ship e-commerce play and never talk to a customer ever. But the reality is that because it's become easier than ever to avoid talking to people, I would argue it's become more valuable than ever to know how to talk to people. And so I would put him in positions where he was having conversations with human beings often. Could that be over the phone? Of course. But for call it a first job, I want him at a restaurant, working retail, not working retail, excuse me. I want him at a restaurant having these conversations with people. I want him maybe in a retail environment, working in the suit section of Nordstrom's, talking to people, digging deep, learning about them. I want him to develop the skills that most don't have for his era. And so the people skills, the old school skills, are actually the new thing that people don't have. And so I would put him in positions to do that. I don't need him out there mowing the lawn and having a podcast in. He could do that. But I would just say, you need to try to have as many conversations as possible. One place to do that is the boiler room. Like, I actually was talking to my son the other day. I said, of all the jobs at Curaytor that you could have one day, all the way up to running the place, the only job you're even kind of qualified for is what we call an ISA, which is the person that goes in and digs through the CRM and tries to call people to figure out if they're still interested. It's the grunt work. It's the sort of entry-level position. But even in that position, the conversations, the volume of at-bats is tremendous. So I think the sort of best job would be a hybrid where you've got this belly-to-belly IRL, outside sales, kind of look them in the eye experience that you would get being a server, being a bartender. But then you've got this volume game, the skill set to do inside sales and to, have conversations over the phone where people aren't sitting in front of you and you're not face to face. That's where almost every conversation at least starts nowadays when it comes to a lead. Very, very, very few people will you be meeting with face to face that you haven't already had some digital correspondence with, typically including a phone call or two. So I would have him doing sort of equally like phone sales, phone conversations, calling the bad leads, like get good at the bad stuff, do the grunt work, do the hard work, put the reps in, do it so that later when you are a great leader and all these attributes that he has that he can really shine one day, he'll be able to say that I did the work. I waited the tables. I cooked at the restaurant. I was the janitor. I did the lawn work. I did the grunt work. I called the shitty leads. It's very important for me for him to be able to say that. And that's my son. So clearly that would be my advice for other people too. I'm going to try to give the advice that I believe in the most to my own child. And so those are the kinds of things. And so if you look at my industry, real estate, people come to me all the time, man. Hey, I'm thinking about getting into real estate, or I just got in. What should I do? I tell them all the same thing. Go find the top agent in your area. Go find the top team and go tell them you're willing to do anything to work under them and learn from them, and ask them what they need you to do. And they might need you to do like putting signs out. They might need you to do pictures or video editing for listings. They might need you to call leads. They might need you to sit at open houses. You don't know what they might need. But the reality is that mentorship is priceless. The value and the ROI of being an understudy is infinite. And so if you don't sort of have the experience doing the real work, which is what we just talked about, and then B, you don't have experience watching excellence perform. If you've never seen it, how are you going to go replicate it when you try to pull it off for yourself one day? So yeah, I would say it's a hybrid of mentors and muscle. And by muscle, I mean elbow grease, blue collar work where sweat is allowed.
I love that answer. Yeah, that's so awesome. And it kind of agrees with that point or underlines that point that doing something like that, like really starting at the bottom level and working yourself up and developing the skills is the right way to go, which many people don't want to go, but it's very valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So to get more into your book, the book is divided into 3 sections. It's first about, generating leads, and then like finding and following up with the best leads. And then the last one is actually what you also called like being in the boiler room, doing the actual sales calls, where you also offer like so many tips and like full sales script that people can use. But let's start with lead generation. You cover, as we already said, so many different channels that people could start with. This is kind of I'm not sure if that's a question that's easy to answer, but do you have a favorite lead generation channel for you personally?
That's a good question. I would say the ones that are the best for me are the ones that I'm not sure if are working or if I should even be investing the amount of time or resources that I am. So I'll give you an example. I got a message and it was the CEO of a huge company, and he wanted me to come speak at his conference like 35 days later. Like it was kind of an urgent request, and it was sort of atypical to bring somebody in this close to the event. There's 5,000 people at this event. It's a big event. And we got on a call and just doing a Zoom like this, or, we scheduled a 30-minute call, and we get into it, and he said word for word, he said, I love your TikToks. He goes, I love everything you're saying. And he actually started reciting the TikToks back to me. He like started saying what I was saying in the actual clips. And I was like, wow. Like, so that moment for me is really important. If I can have it for something newer, like TikTok, that I'm not sure if I should be using it. A lot of people still questioning the validity. Is it foolish? Is it just for kids? It's a Chinese company. There's a lot of fair criticism of TikTok. So for me, an acquisition through there that's easy to attribute because they tell me that my message they found there drew them to me, that's a big, big win. And then I would say probably I like to be able to bring in business from the places that I spend the most time for real. And so what I mean by that is I'm on Twitter all the time. I like reading Twitter. I like tweeting. Like I'm there every day, whether somebody tries to make me log in or not. Like I love Twitter and I love Instagram. And so I put, if you were to look at my screen time from Apple and my iPhone, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter would be way up here. Facebook would be real low. LinkedIn would be real low. YouTube would be real low. You see what I'm saying? So for me, like I do try to put stuff everywhere, and I do, recommend, like you said, there's all these different channels you can do stuff, but I think I want to get an ROI from the new cool ones that I'm not sure if they actually even work. And then I want to get an ROI from the ones where I have the most traction, where I'm putting in the most time and effort, where I have the largest audience and following. Because if it ain't working there, I might need to be changing some things. Because if I'm on Instagram, I got a huge rabid fan base on Instagram, but it's not leading to any business. But over on TikTok, I'm getting DMs and getting hired. Something needs to change. It becomes easy to recognize that. So Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok are my favorite. And then I have one that nobody else has because A, it's new, and B, it's just easier for an author to do this. But I have a text message list that is quickly becoming my favorite platform and medium. It's called community.com is the platform I use. And in the book, there's a few different places where I'm either teaching somebody a tip or giving them a trick they can try. And I'll tell them, hey, text me and let me know you're reading. Like, say hello, like I'm a real person. And so when it's a reader, when a reader messages me through that, where it's like I know they're reading it right now and they send me a picture of themselves reading the book, that's very gratifying. and not really an acquisition channel, because it's already been acquired. But for me, that, and then one-off messages. I told someone yesterday, take a second and send an email to your favorite creator. Take a second and reply to your favorite email newsletter. You'd be amazed, Timo, at how few people do that. So I might send an email to 40,000 people. I think last week over 13,000 people opened my email. I have a great email list. And maybe like 4 of them replied, because that's not my goal. My goal is not for them to reply. Like, James Clear has an email, Tim Ferriss has an email, and what I try to do is I try occasionally just reply to the email and leave a few sentences of gratitude. And I can tell you that when that happens for me, it makes my day compared to everything else. I can get 30,000 views on a reel or something like that. One email from one person where they just basically say, hey, your email newsletter is freaking awesome. Thank you so much for writing it. Maybe because it's in the back channel and it's private, it feels better, because they're really just telling me versus maybe something publicly or like a podcast like this. It's just me and them. It's, they're keeping it a secret that they admire my work. And so whoever your favorite creator is, I don't care if it's Mr. Beast, I don't care if it's Addison Rae, whoever your guru is that you look up to, that you think is awesome, send them a private message and tell them that. Tell them that you love their work. Reply to a video and be real specific about the part that touched you and why. And it's great. And it's a way to separate yourself from all the other fans, that don't take that, just call it 2 minutes even, to write that personal note. It's almost like, it's sad, but an email like that or a DM like that nowadays is almost like the equivalent of the old handwritten note. Handwritten notes are powerful. People should still use them. I still use them now, but it's gotten to the point where almost all of our engagement with each other is public. We're commenting on each other's posts. We're liking each other's posts. And so the sort of the one-to-one back channel messages are actually one of the most powerful things about social media. And there's people that go months or even years and never even send one. They log in, they post, they comment, they like stuff, they reply to the people's comments on their stuff. But they never think of it like, this is really just a CRM. This is just really a database of humans that actually already kind of like me because they're at least my friend on Facebook. And the check-in, the, hey, quick question, how you been? Da-da-da. Like, I just think some people are still thinking about that having to happen through an email or a phone call. And it can happen through a text. It can happen through a tweet. It can happen through a direct message on Instagram. So that would be something I would want your audience to understand is, where can you differentiate your communication compared to where everybody else is having the same exact conversation? Because that, one way to stand out is to be creative and unique. One way to stand out is to have less people around you. And so some of these sort of crevices of the internet are less crowded.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, as a creator, I can really relate that, the people who message me on DM and like ask me questions and we get into conversation, I've even built really good relationships with a few of them. Like, I've never seen them personally, but we've called and, we took the conversation from DM to like, we made a Zoom call together or something like that. So yeah, that's definitely a cool thing. And I also love that you mentioned the handwritten notes, because in your book you say that businesses should do things that don't scale. And that's so like valuable, because everybody wants to do, the automation and like everything has to be like the least amount of work, but people actually value if you take the effort and do something that doesn't scale, like sending out a handwritten note to somebody or something like that. That's so right. I love that you brought that point up. One thing that stood out to me, because I think that everybody who's like into marketing, branding, advertising, sales, everybody has this one question that you answered very good in the book, and that is like, what should we focus on? Where should we allocate our money? Is it ads, marketing, or branding? So what's your take on that?
Yeah. Well, what's wild is most people don't even sit down and have that conversation. They just think of it as this one big chunk of money, right? Like their marketing spend. And there's research around this. A lot of companies, they're at about 9 to 13% of their revenue that they're putting back into marketing and building the company. So you got to figure out your budget, right? What you're talking about is how do you divide that budget up to line up best with your KPIs that are important to you. And so I'll be honest, man. A KPI that's like, I don't even have a KPI for like leads for me. I don't care if I have leads. I don't count how many leads I have, how many leads I get. That's not the race I'm running. For me though, like growing my email subscribers and growing my email newsletter, like I'm obsessed with it. Like, you know what I mean? I like crazy track it, look at the open rate, refresh. Like I'm crazy about it. So yeah, I think that it's sort of what is important to you. It may be different than the other people you admire or the other people that you compete with. So the breakdown though, and the way that I would want people to think about this would be, if you do things that are brand plays, it's a brand play, right? It's a collab, it's a party for your clients, it's it's swag, it's the booth at the festival, right? Like it's the radio spot. Like there's just certain things that we know are a brand play. A lot of direct mail, right? It's just a brand play. You know you're not going to get the leads, you're just getting the impressions, you're getting the views. And when you do something that's kind of cool and awesome, that's a brand play, let's say you collaborate to give away something in a contest with another business and 3,000 people enter to win, and there's all this fun things on social, they're using the hashtag, it's great. It doesn't lead to a lot of leads in business, but it leads to leads that are ready to work with you. So when you go the sort of pure brand route, the upside is you get the highest quality leads possible. When somebody walks into Bentley, it's probably a brand. It's the brand that got them there, not probably the marketing or not an ad, right? It was the brand, and so you're sort of pre-sold when you walk through the door, and you already know it's insanely expensive too, so you're probably also qualified. So when you build your brand, it's great because the people that come to you are ready to work with you. They're sold. It's really about, should we work together? What should the terms be? Do the terms make sense? Do the financial aspects of the partnership make sense? And you're just getting a deal done. It's great. It's not happening that often. If I had a sales team of 10 people that I needed to get leads for, and all I had was those brand inbound layup leads, they'd be bored because I can handle those myself because they're basically sold and ready to go. And then what are they going to do? So a lot of it depends on your company and your setup. If you need to start getting into more leads, higher volume, maybe that's when marketing kicks in. That's when ads kick in. And it's sort of this, like, I actually have this in my workbook. There's a line and you have to put an X on the line with what's more important to you, quantity or quality. And the reason I do that exercise is so that people understand that they're so tied together that if you do say, I need a lot, you are reducing the quality of what you'll get. And then if you do say, I'm sick of these terrible leads, I only want a lead that's good. Okay, we're going to have to pull the quantity down to move that over. So that's something that I think a lot of people should start with. For me personally, for Curaytor, my business that I own, I do need a lot of leads. I have a sales team to feed. For my personal brand and some of the biz dev collabs and sort of investing and speaking and consulting work that I do, I don't even need a CRM. I don't even have a CRM for that business. I don't, I just think about how many successful content creators and brands there are that the only kind of CRM they have is just their email newsletter, and their, like, my CRM is ActiveCampaign. Because that's just it's like, you know how many people's CRM is just MailChimp? Because they got a great brand. They don't have a sales team. They're doing e-commerce. They don't need a CRM. They don't need to put notes in people's files. They don't even have to talk to people to sell them stuff. Like, what a great world. So yeah, it just depends on the organization. It depends on the setup. Even in my little case study of on one side, I want very few leads that are brand and high quality. On the other side, with my business I own, I would say more so in the middle. I don't want my guys with a bunch of crappy leads, but they ain't going to just only get the leads that are like, oh, we love you. We love Jimmy. You guys are great. We're ready to hire you. Can you connect me with your sales team? Those come in. Those are great. We love those, but we can't live off those. We're not making the ink list off those, right? We got to do the marketing that brings in kind of a medium quantity and kind of a medium quality. And then sometimes we just have to run ads that just get us as many leads as possible, where the filter is not the form. See, the one way when you create friction on a form, your lead quality goes up. But if you have no fields, your volume goes up. But if I have a sales team in a boiler room, they can do the filtering. That's their whole job. So if I just get name and phone number and submit, yeah, I haven't vetted and qualified the lead that well for them. But if that's the setup that I have, that's their job anyway. So that kind of balance is tricky. It's different for every company. And what I would recommend would be, if you can be self-aware and say, my budget is sort of small, medium, or large, or let's say my business is sort of small and new, or medium and established, or large and awesome and successful. If you just put yourself in small, medium, or large, that'll kind of help you understand how much money to put into each of these options between brand marketing and ads. Because the bigger you are and the better you are, a lot of brand stuff. You get to do so many brand things. Think Nike, think Lululemon, think Oreos. These companies are not doing a whole lot of lead capture in their marketing. It's a brand play, right? But if I'm a new business, I have to sort of go the opposite route. I have to be willing to take any lead that I can. I have to be willing to just play the volume game, because if not, I'd probably be out of the business I'm in. I'll probably get fired, right? So if you're new and you have kind of a smaller budget, you might eat through the whole thing on the prize for the contest of a brand play. And meanwhile, you need leads. You need people to call. You have mouths to feed, right? So it's almost like the smaller your budget, the worse your leads. That's just how it works. And that's where the organic, social media, grassroots, work your network, work your database, never eat alone, have lunch with someone every day, knock on the doors, right? You can supplement it and complement it with that. Deep thoughts, Timo. Timo's deep. We're going to change the name of the podcast to Timo's Deep Thoughts.
I love that. Yeah, because you went really deep with that, and you even, what's interesting, you said more than there's in the book. So that's interesting, because I also learned some new things right now that I didn't learn from the book.
Good. Yeah, it's fun to be able to do that. I mean, that's what's great about social media. I have a online community called the Conversion Club. Marketing and sales is very fast changing by nature. Clearly, this is the second edition, right? So this is the second version of the conversion code. And that's the reason it's updated, is people were like, hey, man, this thing's great, but it's been 5 or 6 years. Can you go back in the lab and crank another one out? And I did. So I think just embracing that idea that things change, and that's a good thing, Yeah. It's okay that things change. Be excited about change, embrace change, drive change. You hear this stuff all the time at conferences and from gurus, but it's really true. There are people that come to me, Timo, and they say, hey, we're ready. They're like call it they've drank the Kool-Aid. They're in, right? And they want to grow and they're fired up. But there's also people where it's almost like they're defeated. It's almost like, all right, I know I got to be doing this stuff. Timo, I can't tell you how many times that's what I hear when somebody comes to me to help them with marketing, help them with Facebook, help them with social media or advertising, whatever the sort of goal is. They literally say, I don't like it, and I think it's fucking stupid, but you know what? I got to kind of do it because that's kind of what you got to kind of do. So can you help me? Dude, that's so different, man. Do you know how different that is? And so I don't even want to work with those people.
Sure.
Because I already know that they're going to fail. So, but at the same time, I get it. I get it that there's people that have to be dragged kicking and screaming into the future. I get it. But for those people, they have to fix the problem that's causing all the problems. The problem that's causing all the problems is that they don't even enjoy or like the things that they need to add to get to where they want to go. That's the problem. It isn't a problem. They don't know what fucking hashtag to use on TikTok. It isn't a problem. They don't know what time of day to post. You see what I mean?
Sure,
those are all right here, my friend. All of them, right? The problem is that they sort of, for whatever reason, have decided that this stuff, and by the way, that's fine. I have tweets, some of my most popular content says you never have to use this stuff. If you're successful, if you're established, if you're not looking to really grow your business, if you're looking to, just kind of have the life that you've already set up and not have to learn all this stuff and do all this stuff and adapt to all this stuff, good for you. I'll pat you on the back the hardest. I'm pumped for you. But most of us can't do that. Most of us need customers. Most of us need sales. Most of us need leads. And most of us need marketing. And most of us need money, right? And so if you need those things and you want more of them, you are going to have to be in the arena, right? And then once you're in the arena, you might as well be in a good mood. That's kind of what I'm saying.
That's right. Yeah, totally right. Attitude is everything, especially when you want to learn or implement something new. So one thing that I want to ask you, you kind of touched on it already, but where do you see like this whole lead generation, sales, marketing industry going over the next few years? Like, do you see any trends upcoming? Like, what about, Web3, Metaverse? Do you see that changing the landscape of sales, marketing, and everything? Or what do you think about that? What does the future look like?
Great question. Yeah, I think a couple of the things you just hit on, the financial incentive of the audience and the creators is a really fascinating thing to think about. The fact that for the first 10 years that I watched Gary Vee and that I loved Gary Vee, I would buy his book. I will buy anything he told me to buy. But I didn't benefit that his brand blew up. So he got millions of followers. He got, right? Meanwhile, I was one of his early supporters. Like I would be kind of the equivalent of call it like a Patreon, right? Like from the early days, like a wine library days or and so what is absolutely bananas is now you can actually monetize and your tribe can win with you. So what's happened with VeeFriends is it really is this really important moment where whether you're a business or a brand or a creator or an artist or an athlete or a musician or a realtor, it doesn't matter. What just happened and what will now happen at scale slowly, eventually, because you have to remember, Gary's an innovator and a pioneer. And so what is coming is the ability for an author like me to basically put out a book as an NFT, to bypass Wiley all the way. I don't need a publisher because if I have enough people that do the mint, that's going to give me enough money to get the book created. And then now I've got this brand, like the conversion code brand is on fire. I'm killing it. I wish that everything that got better for me, I wish because I've seen what happens when that financial incentive aligns. People will go to war for you. Look at how people promote these NFT projects that they've bought into. They will spam, they will beg, borrow, steal. They will do anything to try to blow up the lazy lions, right? Because why? They don't share articles from the news websites with such passion because now they're financially incentivized. That's wild, and it's very new. In my industry, in real estate, there's a company called EXP. There's another company called Real. They're sort of call it newer companies, more cloud-based, a little bit more bleeding edge. And so some of the money they've been able to save compared to, older brokerages with like physical locations, if you will, some of the efficiencies that they've created, they've put it into sharing revenue and stock with the realtors. And so now all of a sudden, if you join because of me, if I refer you, I make money when you make a sale. So now all of a sudden, like even something like recruiting, you're giving the power to the people to go out there and recruit. Because trust me, Keller Williams, all these companies, Remax, tons of great companies and tons of agents that love the company they're with. But there was not a financial incentive for a top realtor to encourage another top realtor to join. In fact, there was a disincentive because that's their competitor. Why in the world would you sort of enable or empower in any way the people you compete with to help compete against you better? And so what people, at EXP figured out, and props to Glenn and the team there, is that if instead of paying a broker to recruit and train and instead of putting the money into that bucket, you put the money into the agents because they're in deals together every day. They're in Facebook groups together every day. They're actually, what I said earlier, your best salespeople don't work for you. So real estate agents were never the recruiters officially, but they were the recruiters. They were the reason you would want to go work at a different brokerage was because of the experience and the word of mouth that you would have with different brokerages in your market. So if you hear about the shop down the street has all the best tech and the other shop's giving a better split and the other shop's putting on all these great events and helping their agents generate leads, like you're not going to sit around and wait forever for your broker to catch up. But this EXP of everything, this NFT of everything, money is the motivating factor for centuries. And so the Web3, forget all the geeky terms because I love that stuff. Most people aren't dialed in on it yet. To me, that ability to have a smart contract that's public, that everybody can see, that is adhered to, that allows me to basically fund ideas and businesses, and then it allows you to be a part of that journey and to benefit and to kind of go on that ride with me. I think it's going to change everything, because I think if MailChimp started today, I think if HubSpot started today, I think if Salesforce started today, these types of options to benefit financially would be there on day one. Because think about it, you're using MailChimp, you love it, you tell all your friends, they all join. If you're lucky, they do some kind of $5, thanks for sending your buddy our way, right? You're an evangelist, you go to their conferences, you do everything, you love them, and then you see the headline, MailChimp acquired for $18 billion. And guess what happens from that second on? It only gets worse for you as the customer, in most cases. In most cases, from the announcement of the merger or the acquisition, it's all downhill from there, because the founding team eventually moves on, and most mergers don't end well. So in the future, right, in the future, the same way that an early employee at a startup would have stock options and how they would benefit tremendously from being in early and the company having a big exit. I'm just saying that's going to happen for every single thing in our lives. There will be an option to support and then financially benefit from stuff that we never have before. And so I've seen the passion and the fire that gets lit under people when that financial incentive is dialed in, and it's different.
Totally. Yeah, that's so interesting. Like, as you said, it's going to change the entire game of how like people support and help grow their brands and everything. So yeah, I love that take. So since we're kind of running out of time, and I have one more question that I ask everybody who comes on the show, because the show is called The Power of Books, and I'm curious to hear if there are any books that have impacted your life in a big way.
Yeah, there have been. I mean, there's books throughout my life that really mattered a lot to me in the moment that I read them. And some of them, it was that I was learning, being exposed to new ideas and things. And then some of them, it actually was more of a reinforcement that the things I was working on were the right things. It was more of a, okay, I'm not alone. Somebody else understands me and they're doing the same stuff that I'm doing and it's working. So I kind of have the books in those two different buckets. So in my early, like right out of high school or like in high school or like right out of like 97, 98, you know, right when I was graduating high school. And then right when I graduated college, that kind of little chunk of time, The Art of the Deal, which is by Donald Trump, and The Alchemist, those were the two books that I read that basically sort of was like, man, this is like being in business is really cool. And fate and destiny and sort of understanding that you're where you're meant to be. That's what The Alchemist is all about. And they're so different. And it's probably controversial to say that I liked that book now, but I'm okay saying it because I think things change and, you know, probably wouldn't buy that book today. But when I bought that book, man, it was great. I learned a lot from The Art of the Deal. I really did. As a young kid that wanted to be an entrepreneur, it was a good book. And then if I fast forward, you know, kind of beyond that, like Crush It was kind of like the same thing for me when I started blogging and vlogging. And like when I started getting into social media, you know, Crush It was kind of a tactical textbook. Gary Vee's first book was very much X's and O's. There was a lot of like platforms you never heard of to check out and tactic, go to search.twitter.com, search this, do this. I loved it. I was just like, oh my God. So yeah, so Crush It comes to mind. And then the other two books that come to mind, one is called Rework, which is by the founders of 37 Signals and Basecamp. It basically is, you know, there's a new way to run a business. And the new way to run a business and the way that a business should think and operate and breathe needs to be kind of rebuilt from the ground up. And I just love that book, Rework. And then the other one is called The Method Method. The Method is from the guys that did Method Soap. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but it's like a bougie soap company. You know, they care about their customers. They care about the environment, natural ingredients. But their differentiator was sort of the shape and the designs of the bottles, just beautiful. And they wrote a book called The Method Method, because imagine having a goal of being on the shelf in every store and the companies ahead of you are like Procter and Gamble, Unilever. Like, you know, if you think it's hard to be a realtor because there's a bunch of other realtors, try being a dish soap. You know, that is a tricky one. And so their story is so good. And again, it's very tactical. The 7 things we did to disrupt a big old school industry. I loved it. The Method. Those are the ones that come to mind and the reality is I haven't read that many more than those, Timo. I haven't read a million more books than that. I'm very selective because probably like a lot of people, as soon as I get into something and it's not that great, I stop and I don't pretend I read it. So those are the ones that cover to cover read them and then went out and executed the advice in them. I hope a couple of those are new for people.
Well, and I just wanted to say, you don't have to read like millions of them. If you find the ones that really help you and you resonate with them and they inspire you or anything, then it's fine just rereading them over and over again. So, yeah. And I actually didn't know the last one. I knew the first four. And actually, it's funny because Crush It is the reason why we are sitting here today and having this conversation, because that's why it started, like my Instagram page and everything, and why I became a creator.
And by the way, do you mind sharing how old you are?
Oh, I'm 23, turning 24 next week, but still 23.
So think about this, and I don't know the exact date of Crush It's release, but I'm pretty sure that like you were like 11 when it came out, or like 12. See what I'm saying? So now Crush It for you is like how the Art of the Deal was for me. You're a young guy, you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to change the world, you have big ambitions, and so Crush It is like, oh, there's steps you can take. Right. There's a science to crushing it, which Gary did such a good job of. So that's great to hear. But it's wild to think that even if you read that book at 17 or 18, when you were still very young, that book was already out for a few years, right? So
most of the stuff was already outdated.
Like Vidler. You're like Vidler. Yeah, you're like Googling Vidler.
Yeah, right. That's right. No, I love those recommendations, and I'm sure that people will find some interesting, stuff in all of these that you mentioned. So, well, we're kind of approaching the end, so I just want to once more say to everybody who's listening, like, this book, Conversion Code, is filled with a ton of tactics. It's kind of similar to Crush It, I'd say, like with very nitty-gritty stuff. Like, you go very into detail and mention all these tactics, tools and everything, give action steps. So if you really want to go deep and build your lead generation strategy or anything, and like, get customers, then I'd highly recommend the book. There's so much we couldn't touch on, obviously, in this conversation, because we can't put everything from the book into an hour or so of talking. But I really loved it. There's a ton to implement also for me from the book. So I really enjoyed our conversation today, because we covered a lot of stuff that isn't in the book as well. And I thought that your outlook, what the whole space is going to look like in the next few years, was very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thanks again for having me. People can go to theconversioncode.com. They can go to Amazon, Audible, and look it up. And to bring it full circle, I actually think that there's a pretty good chance that the Conversion Code 3 would actually be sort of the Conversion Code Web 3. Because the amount of sort of marketing, advertising, branding, community building, like, it is a clinic of its own, what's happening there. And so I think there could be a really interesting book about, teaching people how to do marketing and sales, literally in Web 3. But then I think for most people, it would be more about taking the learnings and the tactics that are killing it in Web 3 and figuring out a way, if there's a way to bake those into Web 2. Like, are there things that are happening with the Bored Ape Yacht Club that you could basically benefit from today? I think there is, and I love that space, but I see the design, I see the marketing, I see the branding, the community building, the Discord servers. It's just all sort of formulating in my mind that the Conversion Code kind of Web 3 would be out in a few years.
I'm looking forward to that one. We'll definitely check it out.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on today, Chris. And I'm going to link to the stuff you mentioned, your website and everything, and the book in the show notes as well, so people can access it from there.
Sounds good. Thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you. And to all the listeners, I'm looking forward to having you on next time. Bye-bye. All right, that's it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and subscribe to the show to never miss a new episode. Also, check out our YouTube channel if you prefer video podcasts. All right, guys, I'll see you next week. Have a great day. Bye-bye.